Hello, and welcome to episode 9 of the Catcher's Corner. I'm Eric Samolsky, joined as always by my co-host, Sami Ackley. Sami, how you doing on this Friday, Memorial Day weekend?
I'm good, man. I'm ready for the long weekend, and I'm excited about this guest.
Yeah, I am too. I think nobody is here to listen to us talk about fantasy baseball, so let's just go into it. We've got Stephen Vogt, catcher from the Arizona Diamondbacks, with us today. Vogt, how you doing?
I'm doing great. I'm happy to be here. I'm excited to chat with you guys for a while. Memorial Day weekend. The kids are off school today and Monday, so it's been pretty loud and rambunctious. So I'm excited to be chatting with you guys for a little bit.
Awesome.
Yeah, we love it. This is a great setup because Sami gets mad at me because I have like this brick wall behind me and he's in this room, and now you come in with this professional.
This is all original artwork that I put up just for this occasion. I just want to make that very clear here.
Yeah,
I will not be outdone by a brick wall. No way.
Nor should you be. Nor should you.
Yeah.
So Vogt, thanks for joining us. We're gonna obviously just kind of talk catcher to catcher about this. We kind of, we took some questions from some people online, but we just want to hear a little bit about, what today's game is like. And before we dive into some of, the stuff that Sami and I talk about here weekly, there's a lot of talk about minor leagues right now with baseball, the way that they're kind of cutting back on the teams and the systems and the opportunities. And I know that, you were a mid-teens round draft pick, so not kind of one of the, quote unquote bonus babies. And I'm just curious what your experience was like in the minor leagues coming up, and having to kind of grind your way through that system and what you took away from that experience.
Yeah, no, obviously the minor leagues is tough. If you're not a first few round pick or you're high pick that got a lot of money in the signing bonus, you have to be great every year. You have to set yourself apart every single year. You're not going to get the multiple opportunities that say the top round picks are going to be because there's just not enough spots. Right. So for me, I was very fortunate that I fell into in my opinion, one of the best organizations in baseball, the Tampa Bay Rays. They develop so well. They have such great people in the minor league system that are teaching us how to play, how to be a professional baseball player. So I was very fortunate to come up in an organization that promotes from within as well, because not every one of them do. So for me, like going through it and understanding that I have to be great every year and I have to set myself apart. And there were years where I wasn't great. And I always say it's kind of like, and you guys are smarter than me. So what's that scale called, that thing? Whatever it is.
Let's just call it a scale. Yeah,
the scale. Okay.
Yeah, so scale.
The better ball player you are, the bigger turd you can be. Right. the worst ball player you are, the better teammate you better be. So You got to understand where your role is. And so for me, when I wasn't great, I'm like, dude, I better step up my teammate game because I got to do something that's going to help me stick around and maybe buy another opportunity. So it's all of that stuff, and it's a grind to get through the minor leagues for sure.
And just talk about the experience a little bit of, going up and down. I know that you kind of were moving through the organizations, you were promoted, you had some options, you were sent down. What's that like as a player? Because I think, we see it's like, oh, he got sent down to AAA. And like, if you're talking in a fantasy world, they're like, oh, I'll cut him, I'll pick up the next guy. But like, there's a real world component to that. What is it like as a player to live through that promotion, demotion type of experience?
I mean, obviously it's a roller coaster. It's emotional. And when you get called up, you're like, oh my goodness, this is it. Like I've dreamed of this moment my entire life. Here's my opportunity. I'm going to be a big leaguer. Every one of us dreamed of being a big leaguer from the time we were 2-3 years old, if we love the game of baseball. And then all of a sudden you're there and you're wearing the majestic uniform. It's different. It's loud. The third deck is there. The lights are brighter, everything. And you're like, here's my opportunity. I'm going to take it. And then you get optioned or you get sent down and you're like, I may never come back. And there's an element in you that doubts yourself. Every time you get sent down, you're like, man, that might've been my only shot or that might've been my last shot. And so the emotions that it plays with you when you get sent down, it's very real for you to doubt yourself. And you have to get to AAA and you got to go. And AAA is such a tough place to be at times because you've got the bitter crowd, you've got the young prospects who just got there that are excited, and then you got the middlemen who are like, oh, you know what, I'm just content to be here. I had my shot and it's done. So it really plays with your emotions, and you have to keep that perspective and attitude every time you get sent down. And, I think I was optioned over 10 times. Obviously I've been DFA'd 3 times. So I've been through it all, and it every single time it plays with your emotions.
Dude, you've been a part of like some really good player development systems in Tampa Bay and then going to Oakland, right? Like Oakland's known for its player development system and being one of the leading organizations on analytics and player development. So talk to me about like what the differences were between those two organizations and, what they did really well in terms of those two spots.
Yeah, no, obviously I could speak more to Tampa Bay just because I spent more time and played every level, every level there. So the thing that they do really, really well in Tampa, is they help you understand what you need to learn at each level, right? Like, especially from a pitching side or catching side, like, hey, at low A, we need to understand that we have to be able to throw inside fastballs. That's our number one thing. Oh my God, we have to understand.
I forgot. I'm doing this thing. I can't.
I have to understand.
We got a parent situation. You know all about that.
Oh, absolutely.
Dude,
absolutely.
Yeah. Give me a minute. I'll be right back.
So for me, like each level is so different. Like low A, you're learning how to throw inside. In high A, we're learning how to throw off speed and pitchers counts. In double A, it's like, hey, we got to go learn how to pitch, and then all the way up. So it was really mapped out for us. Like, hey, we need to be able to do these things at this level. And then from an offensive standpoint, it's, hey, maybe we're going to work on seeing a pitch first time around, and Oakland was good with that too. Like once I got to Oakland and kind of learned some of those things, you understand like, hey, we're going to help you develop how to see more pitches. We're going to help you understand how to hunt your hot zones and things like that. So each place does it a little bit different, but I was definitely fortunate to come up with 2 phenomenal organizations.
And since we kind of opened that can of worms with analytics, obviously, we've kind of entered the quote unquote like StatCast era of baseball, and everybody's talking about whether it's, spin direction or we're talking about launch angle, we're talking about like all these different terms. Do you guys feel that as much also as players, or is that something that's like on this side of the screen, or is that incorporated into what you do as well?
I think it's a little bit of both. So I myself, as far as like spin rates and things like that, that stuff is just now kind of coming in. So I use that very sparingly. We have guys on our team here in Arizona that are big. They want to know when they're facing a pitcher, like, hey, what's this spin? What's the, they're asking those questions. For me, I've never used any of that stuff. So it's hard for me to really incorporate that into my game right now. Now, understanding this guy's fastball is a little bit different. Now that tells me like, hey, this guy's plus spin. Now I don't need to know what his RPMs are. I don't need to know on what axis that's not my thing. But I'm like, hey, this guy has extra carry. Okay, now I know I need to get on top of the ball a little bit more. Try and swing half a ball above where I think I see it. When a guy's got a good spin rate, you want to try and swing over the top of the ball because that's actually going to get you to square it up. So it's tough, but you have to understand that stuff now, especially with the spin rate that these guys are creating in today's game.
Sure. Creating also totally of their own, fingers and volition, and there's nothing at all else going on.
The spin rates are just really good. Today they're learning how to spin the ball better than they ever have.
Sure. Talk to me about that from a catching standpoint, though. Like when you're game planning, are you game planning differently now that you have all this information at your fingertips than you game planned, when you were first coming up?
Yeah, no doubt. It's no longer just, hey, we're going to go fastballs down and away. It's all right. I've got a guy on the mound like Luke Weaver. Take Luke Weaver on our team, for example. His spin at the top of the zone plays up way more than it does at the bottom of the zone. So we're going to try and pitch at as much as we can. We're going to pitch at the top of the zone. Now he can also paint the bottom of the zone, which is great because you can't just live at the top. But a lot of times it's understanding where guys' fastballs play better and knowing how their ball spins is gonna help with that. So a lot of times we'll try and work at the top of the zone with guys that have a higher spin because it is harder to get on top of and do damage when it's up there. But we also have to get the ball up there because if you don't quite get it up there, that goes a long way.
And when you say we, who's involved in that discussion? Is it you, the pitcher, the pitching coach? Are there more people?
We have a whole team here. Our pitching coach Matt Herges pitcher, catcher, pitching coach. The three of us meet before every game, but we also have an analytical guy, Alex Coltis, who does a lot of our prep work. He shows us a lot of the game plan. We also have Dan Herron, who writes the game plan for the starting pitcher, as well as a whole team of analytics that puts together a plan. And then we kind of take all that information and use the experience that, I have, our pitching coach has, our pitcher, and we all just kind of collaborate one more time before the game to come up with, this is what our game plan is going to be. And then it's obviously making the in-game adjustments, reading swings, understanding if guys are leaking open, if they're late, if they're dropping their hands. Those are the in-game things that, the catcher and pitcher, we notice the most while we're in the game. So it's having the game plan, but then also seeing what we have working that night and understanding that, sometimes you have to just rip up the game plan and go with what's working in that particular night to that particular hitter.
Yeah. So you're talking then about, we're still, incorporating the opponent, and like, yes, the spin rate on the slider might be really great, but this opponent in particular maybe like hits sliders well or hits sinkers well. So we need to go with other pitches. So that's a game by game adjustment that you guys do.
Absolutely. It's every game is different. So for example, we had a pitcher the other night. We were pitching in a game and the report didn't call for very many curveballs. It just didn't. But this guy had his A curveball that night. So guess what? We're going to throw the curveball because I don't care who's hitting. I don't care what's going on. When he's got that curveball, they're not going to hit it hard. So, and we're going to use it as much as we can. And that's in-game stuff that doesn't necessarily show up in a report or anything like that.
And then theoretically that might carry over to the next game as you guys in the report or the metrics that you get or the data that you get is like, all right, let's run it back again. Let's see if it's working, or do we just go right from square one again in the next game?
I think you start out every single game with the game plan and you're trying to get a good mix of all their pitches. You're trying to keep the percentages where they are. But if there's a game where in one particular night, he's got a pitch that is working better than most. And big league pitching will always beat big league hitting, bottom line. So when a pitcher has his A stuff, you got to roll with it. Now that might skew the percentages a little bit, but so what? Then that gets guys thinking about different things maybe for the next game. So then now you could take advantage of them like, oh man, he used 40% curveball last time out. Well, now they're going to be looking, the curveball's going to be in the back of their mind a little bit more, and now we could take advantage in other places. So I like to use the percentages against the other team because I know how I use them as a hitter.
Are there particular metrics that you think when you're, let's talk pitchers specifically right now, so not you as a hitter. If you're calling a game or you're working with pitchers, are there some metrics they look at more than others?
Yeah, I think for me, it's knowing what my percentage of what I'm calling in each count is, because that's the biggest thing we can look at in game is, okay, there's some glaring things. When you look at a report like, hey, in 3-2 counts, this guy's 90% slider. There's numbers out there like that. Now, I'm the guy that gets the 10% pitch because I'm sitting on the 90%er and then I'm out, which, but that's just the way the game works. 1 out of every 10, and it could be you. So you can't be married to the percentages. The numbers, they're never 100% right? That's why they're not 100%. So for me, but me understanding, and I like to go back and look, okay, in 1-1 counts, maybe I'm calling 75% off speed. Okay. Maybe tonight I'm going to call a few more fastballs so I can get that percentage down. I need to know those things because I don't want want anybody to be sitting on something and then they get it and then that's on me. So I would say percentage of usage in count is one of the things I look at the most as a catcher because I want to make sure I'm doing my part to not get into a pattern that's going to get those guys in trouble.
So this kind of leads into like one of the things that Sami and I talk about a lot, and one of the things that I deal with a lot, like when I'm looking at pitchers, is focusing on like pitch mixes, right? Yeah. And obviously back before data, it was always like you knew a guy had a good pitch and you knew you could set that pitch up with the fastball or the changeup or the whatever. So when we look at like the numbers and we're like, oh, this guy has a great slider. If only he just threw the slider more. Right, it's at 13%. If it was at 21%, he could be better because it's a legit pitch. Do you guys are pitchers and you and as a catcher having conversations about how to mix that stuff up, or is it still the idea that like that pitch is thrown 15% because it's part of a larger plan?
I mean, I think it's a little bit of both, right? And we have conversations all the time where it's, hey, if this is our best secondary pitch, why is this not up around 30% usage, right? Like, and those are conversations I've had with coaches, front office people, and pitchers. Like, hey, if this is our best secondary pitch, we should be using it more. That being said, like, you also have to get to a point where you can use it. You can't just be going up. If a guy has a great slider but can't necessarily land it in the zone, or when it is in the zone, it's not a great slider. So now we're not going to be able to throw that pitch in a 1-0 count because we're just going to be putting ourselves into a 2-0 count every time. So that's something that you gotta be able to land that pitch in the zone with the spin, with the bite, that's going to get a weak contact or a swing and miss when it's in the zone, or a buckle or a take. So if a pitch is a good swing and miss pitch, that's great. But how many counts can we use a swing and miss pitch in? And so that's the thing that we have to realize. Now, is there runners on? Is there a runner on third, where we can't be just throwing a slider in the dirt in a 0-1 count because we don't know where it's going to be. So I think for me, it goes pitcher by pitcher, it goes scenario by scenario, and game by game, because there might be a day where my boy that's at a 13% slider, like you said, or 15, I can't remember what the example was, but if I want to throw 3 more tonight to get to 21%, I can probably try and find a way to do that. But that's got to be something that we talk about before the game. Like, hey, here's the plan today. The plan today, we need to get our slider percentage up. All right, we can do that. So now we're looking for opportunities to get the slider incorporated more than just in the 0-2, 1-2, 2-2 ideas.
Right. So I know, we chatted about this before, that, trying to put it into like actual guys that you're working with right now. So like over the last, month or so, Merrill Kelly's seen a real turnaround. There's a lot of, fantasy analysts that are talking about the improvements that he's made. And then you look at like a pitch mix and you're like, oh, he's throwing his cutter more, throwing his four seam less. Are those like, is that a logical conclusion to make, that like maybe there's a reason that he's having some of that success, or is some of that also just kind of like us making a story out of nothing?
Well, I think when you look at that as a fantasy analyst, is that what you called yourself?
That is what I called myself. Yeah. Let's use whatever term that is.
Okay, fantasy analyst. Okay. Yeah. So you look at that as he made an adjustment. So now if I give you the real reason, this dude had thoracic outlet surgery last year. Let's not forget about that.
Yeah.
Okay. Now he's just had his 10th start of the year. 10 starts coming off surgery. Now, some people say, oh, well, that surgery's not that big a deal. Dude, you got cut, you had metal, something happened structurally in your shoulder. It's taken Merrill a few months and a lot of starts to get the feel back for all 5 of his pitches. So for me, like the last 2 starts out for him, he's had all 5. The first 7, 8, he had 3, maybe 4 pitches, but maybe didn't have that 5th. So to be able to throw 5 pitches as well as Merrill Kelly does in the big leagues, the amount of difficulty that takes and the amount of feel and the ability to repeat your delivery, especially coming off of surgery, it takes a long time. It takes a while for you to get that feel back. So for me, him being able to mix 5 pitches is huge. Now, as a catcher, that's a really hard game to call sometimes, because he's got 3 pitches that work at any given time. So now it's trying to understand, okay, maybe we go with this one this time. Maybe we go with that one. Ooh, that cutter's good tonight. Let's ride that thing out. Hey, you know what? The cutter, that's probably his 5th pitch tonight, so we're going to throw more 4-seamers. So those are the things that the in-game stuff takes over. But the last 2 times out, especially, he's starting to get that feel back from last year and the year before, coming off the surgery. And it's really exciting to see, because it's kind of like you're playing the show as a catcher and you're just clicking the button and you're putting in whatever you want. And it's like you're in charge of the video game. And when you got somebody like Merrill Kelly and whatever you put down, he's executing, man, it's so much fun. It's like a video game back there. It's really cool.
I love that game so much. I also love that. I appreciate you letting me call myself a fantasy analyst, because I feel like it puts me more like on your level, and I just makes this conversation better. But before we dive into just some more specific arms that you've had a chance to work with and talk about them, I did get some questions, and you and I have talked about this. Talk to us about the catching on a knee thing, and like how this is now becoming more popular. Do you like it? And how are we still throwing out runners if we're catching off a knee?
So first things first, okay? The one knee down, I'm a 36-year-old catcher. Let's not forget about the facts here, okay?
It's true.
I'm a 36-year-old catcher. My hips aren't as loose as they used to be. My back's not as loose as it used to be. It's still great, okay? I'm not as good as I once was, but I'm as good once as I ever was, right? I looked at some of the data of my pitch framing, and I was atrocious at the bottom of the zone. Atrocious. So when I came to Arizona, I had already started to incorporate some of the one knee down with nobody on. And I think that obviously helped. But with runners on base, my framing was absolutely horrendous. And so when I got to Arizona, our catching coach, Robbie Hammock, he was the one that said, hey, when you go down to one knee, your framing numbers are through the roof. When you go to your traditional secondary, you're not getting the bottom of the zone, which is going to do this. So we started looking at he's showing me some of the numbers. And so if there's 150, these, I'm just throwing these out. These are not exact fantasy analysts. Okay. But if there's 150 pitches a game that I have an opportunity to frame, that's 150 chances to impact the game positively and get the advantage in our direction. If there's 10 pitches a game that I need to block, 8 to 9 of them are going to be within my frame, and I'm going to be able to block them on one knee. There might be 1 to 2 that I really have to scoop or dive or pick or whatever it might be. And then there might be 2 pitches a game where I need to throw a runner out, 2 to 5, let's say. So if we look at just the sheer bulk workload, I'm going to be framing a lot more than I'm going to be blocking or throwing somebody out. So if I can learn to get a frame from one knee down and be athletic with it, then I'm going to be a better catcher for our team. Now, I have put in hours of work at blocking and throwing with one knee down. This isn't just something, I'm just going to put a knee down to save my legs. That's not what I'm doing at all. It's allowing me to have the ability to get the low pitch, to have I'm getting the high pitch, I'm framing and blocking and throwing better than I ever have in my career with one knee down. Now, I'm also using a lot of experience here with my eyes. I know when a guy is struggling with his slider control or something like that, then guess what? I'll go to a traditional blocking stance so that I can block that pitch if it's going to be really wild, especially the runner on third. However, I've put in so much work that I feel more confident now blocking with my right knee down than I do in a traditional stance because I've put in the work. Have I missed a few blocks? Yes, I have. I'm not perfect. Is it because I'm one knee down? I would say there's been 3 balls over the last calendar year that I've missed because I was on one knee down. And that's it's kind of like the shift, right? We always talk about the 3 ground balls that beat the shift. We don't talk about the 25 that are hit right into the shift. It's the same thing. The fact that I've blocked as many balls as I have with one knee down, it's helped me. Would I recommend this to an amateur catcher who's just starting out? Absolutely not. You need to learn how to block and throw from a traditional stance. This is me adapting to what I need to do in my career at this time to be the best catcher I can be for my pitchers and for my team. So I've put in the work, and with the throwing, if you watch in slow motion, my right knee is off the ground and I'm in a traditional stance as I'm catching the ball and doing my transfer to throw to second base, which has taken a lot of reps and a lot of work. And I do it still every day. I get my reps in every day so that I'm ready for it in the game. And I'm throwing better now 2 shoulder surgeries later than I ever have in my entire career. And a lot of it is because when I put my right knee down on the ground, it allows me to use my athleticism to get me going.
Nice. It's nice hearing that from you because it's good to hear the nuance behind it, right? I think it's the blocking, or sorry, the framing the low pitch is something that I think everybody also understood, but the narrative has kind of shifted to like, oh, well, if people are running less, then catchers can catch off of a knee because we don't need to worry about throwing so much. But it's good. It's interesting to understand that it's not so much just about like sacrificing one for the other, that it's a little bit of it can actually make your game better overall behind the dish.
Yeah. And that's me personally. Like I can't speak for anybody else out there, right? Like not all of us are the athlete that Real Muto is. That, I mean, he's in a hockey stance, like laying on the ground and he's up throwing people out. I don't know how he does it. I'm not that athletic. So everybody's got their different skill sets and abilities. And I think for me, it was, how am I going to create a way for me to be the most well-rounded catcher I can be And after doing all this work and putting in the time, for me right now in 2021, it's when I put my right knee down on the ground, I am a better catcher. Now, I've also incorporated some traditional stance back in this year because I think some umpires like the look of a traditional stance better than a one knee down. So it's feeling out which pitchers like what, just like Madison Bumgarner likes a traditional setup. So I'm not going to catch one knee down with Madison Bumgarner. I want to give him the view that he wants. So that's where you have to kind of be able to do both.
This is your perfect showcase for your ability to kind of do TV, radio. That segue was beautiful because I wanted to talk to you about Bumgarner because you guys were teammates before, and he's obviously one of the most talked about pitchers on your team, obviously because he's Madison Bumgarner and his career speaks for itself. Also because he had a little bit of a down year last year in the short season and has kind of rebounded a little bit this year. Can you talk about like working with him, and do you feel like he's, it was just like a 1 year blip? Do you still see him as the pitcher that you saw when you were in San Francisco? Is this a guy who's learning how to adjust, to being a different type of pitcher as he gets older in the league?
I mean, I think it's all of those things, right? It's everything you just mentioned. Let's not forget that this is no offense, but the greatest, I'll say one of, so I don't get in trouble, one of the greatest postseason pitchers in the history of baseball. There's no argument there. Probably one of the most dominant performances we've ever seen, right, in the World Series of 2014. But this is a guy that had so much change in his life last year. Comes to a new organization for the first time. Then we have COVID. Then we have this. And it's not making excuses. I think these are reasons. And all of us went through stuff last year that we could have never dreamed of, whether it be on the field, off the field. I mean, everybody, no matter what you do for a living, last year was a mess. So had a tough year last year, came into spring training, looked great, got off to a slow start. I think it was just for him needing to get back to who he is. He's Madison Bumgarner. Dude, I think our pitching coach said it great. Matt Hurd just said, dude, you're Derek Zoolander. Like, just remember who you are. His stuff is great. Like, the cutter's sharp, the breaking ball is big, and his velo's back up to 92, 93. This is the same guy I caught in 2019. And he's back to doing what he does. Now, the thing is that he knows that if he misses over the middle of the plate, it's going to get hit. And that's something that he hadn't done that much up to this point until last year and then this year. But to me, his stuff is back. His control is back. His command is great. And he's putting the baseball where he wants to again. And that's why you're seeing the success. He's back to being Mad Bum, and he's a lot of fun to catch. He's a lot of fun to watch pitch. And I'm excited to see what he's going to do moving forward. To say anything's changed, nothing's changed. He's just back to believing he's going to put the ball where he wants to when he wants to.
Out of curiosity, when you're game planning a game with him, is he driving the ship? Are you driving the ship? I mean, obviously you guys both have a lot of experience, but as you mentioned, he's Madison Bumgarner. So does he kind of dictate what that game plan is?
It's his game, man. I do my prep just like we always do. We all do our prep like we always do. But when he gets on the mound, I'm going to trust what he wants to throw. I mean, if he's convicted in throwing a curveball, we're throwing a curveball. If he's convicted in a cutter, fastball, changeup, it doesn't matter. And that's the way I want it. He knows him better than any of us. So if he feels like he wants to throw this pitch at any given time, who am I to say, maybe not the right call? So we have some good discussions, and he and Carson have worked together really, really well, and that seems to be the duo that works for him. And so that's great. It's a collaboration, and we're trying to win, and that's all that matters.
And then flipping it to one of the younger guys on your team, since we talked about a vet, one of the most kind of exciting arms, from a baseball fan standpoint, but also in the fantasy world, is JB Bukauskas. He's obviously down now with an injury, but I know you've had some experience, seeing him, catching him. What do you think his career is? You think he's kind of going to be a dominant bullpen arm? What do you think of his stuff as somebody who's caught him?
Man, I think he's got a back into the bullpen domination written all over him. The fastball is carry, it's got life, and the slider and changeup are both wipeout, swing and miss. So he's kind of got the good four seam and then slider, changeup going both directions, and he throws them all three to both righties and lefties. To me, that's back into the bullpen written all over it. Come in, get 3 outs, go 1+. I think the sky's the limit for him, and he's really, really exciting. It's unfortunate that he's on the shelf right now, and hopefully it's something minor and he can get back out soon. But I think this kid's got the chance to be a closer for a very, very, very long time, and he's got the right attitude and the right stigma on the mound to do it as well.
And since we're talking about him as a rookie arm, a lot of the discussion also recently has been there have been some top pitching prospects and Daniel Lynch and Logan Gilbert, guys getting called up and struggling a little bit in their first taste. As somebody who's kind of been through that grind, what do you think is it about the league that makes it so difficult for rookie pitchers, to go from like lighting up the minor leagues to coming in and making that transition?
It's the big leagues, man. Like I talk to the young guys all the time. I'm like, you've never gotten that pitch hit that hard before. When you've thrown your slider down and away, it might get popped up, it might get rolled over, but it's not getting whacked like it's going to get whacked here. Like there's negative pictures and nightmares in their head for the first time in their life, right? You got a dominant pitcher who's young, who's come through high school, college, lower levels, AA, AAA. They've gotten hit hard maybe once in their life. And it was like, well, yeah, I threw it right down the middle. But when they've executed their pitch, it's never gotten hit hard. Well, now you're dealing with the best hitters in the world. Guess what? They're going to take your good slider and they're going to hit a double down the line the other way. They're going to take that fastball up and in, and they're going to hit a pull side homer. You're like, what just happened? So for the first time, some of these young guys have negative thoughts in their head before they're ready to throw a pitch. They've never had to deal with that before. Yeah. And that's not easy for everybody to deal with. It's not just, just turn the page and make the next pitch. Like there's nothing like failing at the big league level to make you doubt your ability as a baseball player. And that's just the bottom line. That's real. That's human nature. So no matter how good you are, no matter how long you've been doing it, when you fail over and over, it's hard and it's frustrating. So the thing I could say, and I continue to say to the young guys is, hey, stick with it, believe in yourself, because there's just as many good thoughts in your head as there are negatives. So when you get that nightmare thought again of, man, I can't believe he hit that pitch, replace it with one that's a nasty swing and miss. And now we go with that positive thought. And it's not easy to do, and it takes time to learn how to do it. And I still have to try to do it every day, because when I get blown up by 98 for the 90th time in the week, like you got to just say, hey, you know what? I've hit that pitch before. I got to get my foot down and be ready for it. And that's the hardest part with the young guys struggling.
We got Sami back.
Yeah. Yo,
I
got one. I'm gonna come in rapid fire, just like hardcore, hit the wall, just like, Steve. Let me ask you a question. How tired of you of pitchers getting pulled in like the fourth or fifth inning with 60 pitches due to some bogus analytical stuff? Like seriously, dude. Like tell me. Come on.
I mean, that's just coming right back in. You missed the first 35 minutes, and now you come in with a hard hitter. No, I honestly I try to keep myself out of that. I know I'm going to be a professional fence sitter here, okay? Right. But the people who make those decisions, the people who are doing that research, they're doing it for a reason. Do I like it? No. Like when a guy's dominating, my thought as an old school baseball guy,
let him go.
Like, hey, we got to keep this rolling. But obviously they know something I don't. Right. Obviously they know something I don't. Now we can get into, there's a lot of different reasons for why this is happening. But in my opinion, like my job, and this is me being a professional fence sitter, my job is to catch the guy on the mound and help him get as many outs as he can until it's the next guy's turn. So there's obviously a lot of data when you just look at the third time through the order. Most pitchers are getting lit up third time through the order. That's just the way it is. So to me, I would say those pitchers who are getting lit up third time through, keep going 2 times through really, really well. You're going to earn your third and shove that third time through. Right. Because that's going to continue to earn you the next guy and then the next guy and then the next guy. So
I just feel like we get deprived of those moments, like, those like hardcore baseball moments where a pitcher's like at the end of his rope and you're trying to find whether or not he's going to get through. Like, like those moments that keep you on the edge of your seat, right? Like you're not going to see those things.
You're talking about like gritty moments, like the guy watching the guy battle. That's what baseball's
about, man. Like the perseverance of getting through it. Like, a guy's at the end of his leash, can he get through it? Like, that to me is like the essence of the game. I feel like it's being taken away by the analytics somewhat.
Yeah, I mean that happens in some places, right? It happens with some pitchers. But then you got the Chris Bassett last night throwing 115 pitches to get a complete game, and
that was sick.
Yeah, I was, and then tearing up afterwards. That makes me so happy. And you're right. Like there are moments that we're missing out on, and the game is always changing. The game has changed so much in the last 10 years, and it's going to continue to change. It's going to trend back the other way.
Right.
It's going to. Everything does this, right?
Yeah, cyclical stuff, right?
Yeah. So I think at some point we're gonna start to see some of those guys. But the thing I would say is, if you want to be the pitcher that's going to go 7-8 innings, you got to show up and you got to be dominant every time.
Right.
You got to earn your leash.
Right.
I think before it was, hey, let's see how many pitches, how many outs this guy can get. Now it's, all right, let's see what he can do. And so if you're a young pitcher, that's got to be your mentality is as this game gets going, I'm going to keep going. I'm going to make them not be able to take me out.
Right.
So I think that I put that on the pitcher just as much, pitcher and catcher, just as much as I'm putting it on everybody else, is make them have to think twice about pulling you in that 5th, 6th inning.
Right. I got just one more. Yeah, I know you got one. Like, are we ever going to see more officiating videos on your part? I know you did one with Johnny Gomes about like 7 years ago. Yeah. Like, come on, man, you're depriving us.
Hey, they're for the boys now. They're for the boys behind closed doors.
All right.
That was fun when I was like young, like 29. Now I'm older, 36. We gotta be more pop.
Temper it down a bit.
More pop vote now.
All right.
But it does actually get to one of the things I was going to say, because we got a comment, which I'll put in here, which is Stephen Vogt, one of the greatest players in Azusa Pacific program history. Go Cougs. Yeah. We also had 2 comments online from A's fans. One just saying that they thanked you for all that you did for the organization. Another A's fan who asked if it was possible for you to turn off your sex appeal. So it just kind of leads to this question of, like, wherever you go, you seem to have this legacy behind you of being, a fan favorite, somebody that everybody loves. What does that mean to you? What has that meant to you in your baseball journey? And what do you think? Why do you think you're able to do that?
Well, obviously, those comments are great, and I'm so thankful for everywhere I've been able to be. Right, like and Oakland will always have the most special place in my heart, because I was there. We were there for 5 years. We grew our family from 1 kid to 3 kids. I was able to play in the playoffs there and just play for Bob Melvin and play in front of a fan base.
You had a big hit there too, man.
There's obviously big moments of my career. Most of them were there, and the fans there are so loyal to the players. And I think for me, like, there might only be 10 to 15,000 there on any given night at the Coliseum, but they are into the game from pitch 1 until the very last out. And they're always positive with their players. They're always supporting them. And that to me is why Oakland is always going to have a special place. But for me, honestly, you guys, like, I was the kid in the stands watching the big leaguers, and I would have given my left arm for one of them to just smile and wave and say hi, ask me how I was doing. I didn't, autographs were great. Getting a ball, like my dad always told me, he goes, if you ask for a ball and I hear it, we're going home. Right. So that was me. It was like, they're here to play. We're here to watch.
Too, man. Any ball thrown in the stands is yours. You got to go get it.
If one gets thrown in and you get it, great. But if you ask for a ball, we're going home.
Right.
But for me, like, every chance I get, and I think last year was so hard for me because for all of us, like I said, but me personally, looking and finding a kid in the stands, smiling, saying hi, ask them how they're doing. That, like, if that would have been me as a kid, I would have been like, oh, no way. And then that energizes me to want to go out and play for them. I had a coach that told me, play every night for the guy who's there. That's his first baseball game. Show them how the game of baseball is supposed to be played. And to me, that's interacting with fans, saying hi, smiling, waving, and then playing at 100% every single play, every single night. You run ground balls out hard. You hit a home run, you put your bat down, you run around the bases. I know that's unpopular. Right. Okay, I know that's not cool. Let the kids play. But for me, like, you play the game hard to show the example of how to play it. I have no problem with people that want to show flair. I love it. That's their thing. My thing is playing the game hard. So for me, I think that's the fan favorite thing. And then on top of that, kind of the chunky average white dude that actually gets to play a professional sport. Right. I feel like everyone can be like, if that dude can play in the big leagues, I think I can play in the big leagues. So,
you're dudes. You're a dude's dude. Like, that's what
all of those reasons I think are why the fan favorite thing is But just trying to interact and showing people like, hey, this is my job, but it's not who I am. Like I love this thing. And my wife, Alyssa, and I have always tried to get involved with the community everywhere we go, just because we're so thankful for this opportunity that we have to represent the team and the city that we're playing in. And we want to give back as much as we can.
Right. And catchers are usually leaders by some default, for some reason or another.
Well, we're the only ones that have to deal with pitchers and position players. So it's like,
that's right.
This weird,
that's right.
Weird hybrid. Yeah.
Eric, I don't know if you asked. One more because I know I missed out. It shit happens. Anyway,
yeah.
Stephen, what pitcher or what pitch did you find the most difficult to deal with? Like, what was it? Was there a certain pitcher where you're like, just a pitch that they had that was just tough to handle for you, and just like you were hesitant dealing with?
Sonny Gray, everything with Sonny Gray.
Just movement and that curveball.
Yeah, I mean his sinker cutter, his curveball slider, and then all of a sudden he'd want to throw a changeup one day, and literally whatever Sonny Gray throws is going to be nasty and it's going to move a ton. And when we were coming up together, there were probably days where he hated me because I couldn't catch him. It was so nasty. And but no, he has the best stuff of anybody I've ever caught. No offense to anybody else who's listening.
Right.
But Sonny Gray stuff, it's 2021. You got to say no offense.
Also, they're not listening. We can, but Sammy and I know it. It's all right.
but my point is like his stuff was and still is some of the best stuff in all of baseball, and it was just. You didn't know if it was going to, he was going to bounce it and it was going to hurt your chest because it was so hard. And he was so disgusting, and he was an awesome challenge every single time you get to catch him.
Dude, you definitely came out bruised up after those starts, I bet.
No doubt.
Talk to us just because you got to get out of here. Sammy and I have been talking about the future of baseball for a while. There's all these proposed rule changes. There's the idea of, everybody's talking about blackouts. How can I watch all these games? What do you see? Do you think we just got to keep trucking the way we're going? Do you think, using kind of like online more, like getting video out there more? What do you think is the future of the game?
Oh, man. I think obviously this December, a lot of that's going to get ironed out in the new CBA. I think, it's a true travesty that there's blackouts. We're trying to grow the game. That's what we're trying to do. We're trying to grow the game. We don't promote our players great.
Right.
It's about the teams. It's not about the players, and that needs to change.
Right.
The players are going to grow the game. Now the teams are going to be around a lot longer than the players, but fans want to follow the players. And the fact that there's blackouts, it shouldn't be blacked out. If you live in the city or you're a fan of that team, you should be able to watch them play. Right. Bottom line.
Yep.
Bottom line. I don't think I need to take it any further than that.
Nope.
It's a travesty that, I just heard from one of my high school teachers who lives in my hometown in California, and we just played the Giants, and he could not watch us against the Giants. He's 2 hours from San Francisco. That's unbelievable. There's people living in Los Angeles that can't watch the Dodgers. I don't understand it. So
it's crazy.
Obviously, I think that needs to change, but those are way above my pay grade. And
sure.
But I do think if we're going to grow the game, there has to be access for every single person to watch every single minute of whatever game they want to do. And I think that's the best way to do it.
Get Vogt in the room, baby. Get him in the room.
One day.
Hey, we got some time.
We got time. That's why I said one day. You got many more years. Many more years.
We'll say a few more. We got a few more years.
On that note, I know you got to get ready for the game. Thanks for taking the time to come and chat with us. Really appreciate it.
Yeah, it was awesome.
Good luck today.
Good luck tonight.
Yeah, thank you. We'll do it again. We got to do this again sometime.
Yeah, man.
For sure.
Whenever you want. Emergency, and we can rap a little bit more. You know what I'm saying?
All right. Take care, guys.
All right,
see you, Vogt.